Okay. So hi everyone, welcome to the 18th meme seminar now. Today we have Ari Askari, um, who is a meme alumnus from graduating in 2014, I believe. And he is now a data scientist with plenty of non-academic career experience to share with all of us. So this will be a very informal discussion. I don't know if Ari probably has something to say to kick us off, and then we can just have a Q&A and whatnot.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. So hi everyone. I'm Ari, 2012 2014 cohort. After I graduated meme, I started a PhD in 2015 at McGill. We're at the same lab where Charles is working. And about a year after that, I basically decided to move away from academia and see where I could end up within the private sector. A few weeks ago, Charles invited me back to the Barrett Lab meeting as a sort of special guest because there were a few folks in the lab who were interested to get some advice as to what the post academic world is like. So I came back and we had an informal chat, and it felt like it was useful. So we thought, hey, why not do the same thing for the meme seminars? This is super informal. I don't have a deck ready. I don't have anything to present. I don't know if we'll need the full hour. I certainly only have an hour. I guess if you don't have any questions to start off, I could just start telling you my story of what it was like. Bear in mind, my experience, I mean, your mileage may vary because I know everybody is kind of scattered around the world, with many of you in Europe. My experience is especially Canadian. I'm in Toronto, but I think it's applicable somewhat to America as well. I'm not too familiar with how things are in Europe, but I would imagine a lot of my experience may still be analogous and carry over there as well. So just to start off, after leaving my PhD, the hardest part was, as I'm sure many of you would agree or already have experience, getting my foot in the door, getting that first job. Data science was always super attractive to me. So, I mean, I always dabbled in machine learning and AI and playing around with what can be done with all the various data sets that I had access to. But I decided to take it really seriously after realizing that, academia was going to work out. But still, nonetheless, without any professional experience to talk about and showcase, it was very difficult getting my foot in the door. Despite having a portfolio, I had a GitHub profile page, for example, showing all the cool stuff I could do. Every application that I put in, I always made sure to find the recruiter on LinkedIn and send them a message saying, hey, here's some, I know you have my cover letter and resume, but here's some supplementary material. Here's a notebook showcasing what I'm capable of doing, and so on and so forth. But still, I didn't get any calls back. Eventually, I decided that the best way to get my foot in the door is to develop a professional network of sorts. And for other various reasons as well, I stumbled upon a college program that was only 8 months long. It was basically a postgraduate certification in market research, which wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but the program had close to 100% employment rate within the first few months of graduation. The program had been established for over 25 years and had a very strong connection with the market research industry in Toronto. Graduates of the program were basically every year hiring from that program. So it looked like it's kind of a safe bet. I signed up for it. I got accepted into it. And it made sense for me to be there because at the time, my girlfriend at the time lived in that city as well. So everything kind of lined up. And I did that program for 8 months, and I got my first job out of it, which wasn't all that. I mean, the job itself wasn't all that great. It wasn't data science by any means. My official title was as a research analyst, but still my goal was to become a data scientist, whether at that company or the next. And I made that very clear to them right from the get-go, right from the very first interview. Excuse me. After a year of that, I moved on to basically get my dream job after that. After a year, I joined a tech consulting firm as their third data science consultant and spent about 2 years and 9 months working for them, which was an amazing experience because it taught me a great deal as to what to look out for when it comes to data science projects overall, how to consult clients who may know a little bit about machine learning or nothing at all about machine learning, let alone science, and basically be able to identify what's worth our time and what's not, because as a consultant, all of our hours were billable. So I got really good at estimating the effort required to build a POC, build a proof of concept or a minimum viable product, and objectively identify what value, what business value it can bring to our clients, kind of getting the dollars and cents attached to all the work that was being done. Hey, Mia. Hi.
Hello.
Anyways, after about almost close to 3 years of that, I got recruited to be the lead data scientist at this tech startup where I'm currently working right now. And things are good. Things are great. I do want to give you guys a sense of what like my responsibilities are. Broadly speaking, they fall under two main categories. And one of those categories, everybody from me is already an expert in, which is basically advanced analytics, just applying statistics to tabular data. As simple as that. I've come across so many analysts, so many market research analysts and other analysts who even may even have an MBA or trying to apply the same statistical methods, but often fail because they don't have the experience we have in the sense that they've never done an experiment. They've never collected data. And this is just my own anecdotal observations, but you know, when prompted with a data set and asked to analyze it, often their main go-to is to just start visualizing things and start identifying patterns qualitatively, visually. Whereas, you know, the much more advanced and better way to do it, I'm sure you'd all agree, is to start building statistical models, basic ones such as linear regressions, multivariate linear regressions, and sort of move on from there and let those models tell you where to then spend your time visualizing, for example. This is truly something that I find completely lacking in the private sector, the ability to use even the most basic statistics and apply them to data sets. So broadly speaking, I spend about half my time doing all those stuff, and I really enjoy doing it. And the other half of my time, I'm basically developing machine learning applications. And this is something that was never taught in MEME, and this is something I had to sort of self-teach. The good news is there are plenty. It's just a sea, it's an ocean of resources out there. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with the world of AI, but they take this whole concept of open source and collaboration to the next level, especially with the fact that a lot of the innovation isn't coming from the research side of things, isn't coming from the field of machine learning, but rather from the industry itself. So they're usually open about publishing, either publishing the methodologies, if not providing access to leading edge, world-cutting, leading edge models that they develop. So roughly speaking, that's kind of what I'm doing. I mostly work in R for the analytics. I mostly develop using Python for the machine learning stuff, for machine learning applications. And I manage and I consult and I teach. And overall, I think, I don't know, it's my opinion that everybody who's completed MEME is in a good position to apply for or to start thinking about potentially becoming a data science professional, given our backgrounds, given our ability to teach from all the TA-ships I'm sure everybody has had the pleasure of having. I certainly found that to be an incredibly positive and beneficial experience. Our ability to apply the scientific method with high rigor, severely lacking in the private sector, my observation, and our ability to, teach ourselves new things, teach ourselves how to work with new models, new statistical methods. All of this comes together, I feel, to set up a really strong group of people that are well positioned to being successful in the world of data science and AI. So that's kind of my spiel. I'm open to a conversation. If you guys have any more specific questions you'd like to ask, I'm totally open and totally free. Let me know. Hey, Sergio, welcome.
Arash, what kind of jobs were you applying to at the beginning?
Honestly, I was applying to data science positions like junior data scientists and stuff. There were a lot of co-op. Do you know what co-op is? So it's popular in Canada. It's like an internship. So I was applying to a bunch of internships, co-op positions that usually went to full-time students, but some of them accepted like other non-students as well. And general analysts. But the problem with the title of an analyst is that it's incredibly broad. You could be an analyst and all that could be expected from you is to just study Excel files, or you could be an analyst and you're expected to like build BI tools and dashboards and know how to work with SQL and query databases. So it's an incredibly broad sort of position to be an analyst. So you really got to look at the description and the role, job role and responsibilities. But regardless, I was mostly applying to data science and junior analyst positions. And I eventually, well, none of them worked. And I eventually went to college, came out, and started off as a research analyst.
So those that you were mentioning were not paid, actually, like they.
No, they were paid. Co-ops are paid. Yeah.
Ari, do you think this formal education that you got there later in the college was essential for you to move on in your career? There is some requirement to get a formal education in data science?
No. So most data science postings that I've seen require that you have, at the very least, an undergrad. Most of them require at least a master's in, usually they list off like computer science, engineering, or some other related fields. And we come from a heavily quantitative scientific field, so we're totally applicable. Like our backgrounds are 100% applicable. The college program I did really, I mean, it positioned me well to better understand the world of branding and brand strategies and consumer, market research that goes into, a lot of surveys that are done for consumer packaged goods and the sorts, but it didn't really, I'm not using any of that for my day-to-day as a data scientist. That college program really was to get my foot in the door more than anything else. So no, I don't think you need any formal training. Any formal certification. What's that, sorry, Laura?
No, that I wonder what the opposite, like what if you already have like a PhD, like are you overqualified and then maybe they wouldn't take you because of that?
I mean, it depends on your definition of overqualified. The answer is no. If you take a look at, I mean, there are surveys done on data scientists in the field and what their qualifications are. More than half of them have a master's, but a good chunk of them have PhDs as well. If anything, it better positions you to negotiate a higher salary. So no, I don't think the field of having a PhD overqualifies you for to become a data scientist at all. In fact, it can only help.
So I have a question here. Do you ever feel bored when things get repetitive? Like, do you feel like personally engaged with a project you get involved?
Sorry, Mia, could you repeat that?
Sorry, I have a problem with the audio of my computer, so I'm like using phone for the audio. So just wondering, like, do you get bored when things get repetitive on your job?
Oh.
And yeah.
Do
Yeah,
things
like,
ever?
do you feel engaged with your projects?
So I've been lucky in the sense that the last two positions I've had have been very engaging. I've never been bored. Having said that, I've spoken to a bunch of other data scientists, and I've actually become really good at looking at a job description for a data science position and figuring out whether this is going to be a boring, repetitive day-to-day kind of thing, or they actually want you to innovate and they want to give you some responsibilities on authority and autonomy. I've been super lucky. My last job as a consultant, every project was different, every client was different, every budget was different, every requirement was different. So it made it very engaging. At my current position, I didn't know what to expect because I moved from the consulting side to the client side. Now I only have just the one client, but so far so great. They've realized that I bring they've never had someone who can run a linear regression model ever on their staff. So they gave me a whole bunch of previous analyses that they've done in the past to kind of redo. And that was a lot of fun. And now I'm building them some new tools that they can use to enhance the platform. We have this platform. It's a communications platform. It's an app. So no, I haven't been bored, but I have come across data scientists who like all they ever did as their job description is to maintain a churn model, for example, a model that does survival analysis to ensure that clients that subscribe to the service, what subset of clients are most likely to unsubscribe in the coming month. And they have this model, they have this pipeline that generates that subset every week or every month. And the only job a data scientist has to do is to just make sure that that pipeline is optimal. And that sounds like a very repetitive position. But I've had those conversations with data scientists that hate their lives and hate their jobs as well. So you got to be careful. For sure.
And I guess I have sorry.
Go ahead, Mia. I will go after you.
Thank you. I guess I have a follow-up question to that one, like biology.
So much. So much. I miss science. I miss being around you guys. I miss having our conversation. I know you guys are so used to it and it's like second nature to you, but these scientific conversations that require you to, be super skeptical about what other people, the claims, any scientific claim that somebody makes, or, think objectively. You don't get that as much in the business world too much. So I really do miss that aspect. I feel like I've lost touch and I'm not really keeping up with the latest, the latest science coming out of the field of evolutionary genomics, for example. So I feel that disconnected, and that kind of sucks a little bit. At the same time, like I feel super connected to the world of machine learning and how it's progressing year over year. And there's some super exciting stuff happening in that field, although I understand far less of it. But I really miss like just being around scientists a great deal. Really do.
Thank you.
Hi, Crystal.
Thank you. That was also a very good question. But my question is that you mentioned that you have your dream job and that you're very happy now. But I'm guessing that to get there, that you had to show the person that employed you that you worked in the field before. With getting a PhD in academia and then moving on to the job market, I guess we cannot expect to get our dream position. We will have to work in industry in a different job that is not optimal. Do you think this loss of time, because we would be then like in our mid-30s, does that play a role in the data science world? So
that totally depends. You're totally right. Like I mentioned, getting your foot in the door is, in my experience, was the toughest step post academia. You increase your chances of getting your foot in the door if you apply to those lower level positions, despite the fact that you may be overqualified or the work itself may not be rewarding. Having said that, I mean, I think anyone with a master's or PhD who can showcase their abilities with not only stats but machine learning is in a really great position already to be successful as a data scientist. And I think it's not necessary to go through that those initial sort of walk up that professional ladder to become a data scientist. I think you guys should just aim to become a data scientist from the get-go, especially if you have a PhD already. You just need to be able to demonstrate your proficiency and competence with the world of machine learning, with coding in Python, with a little bit of SQL querying. The ability to work with various types of data, not just tabular data, but audio data, visual data, videos and images and that sort of thing, which can be done with a quick GitHub repo with a bunch of projects here and there. So much, there's plenty of resources for you to be able to put that portfolio together within a few weeks, I'd say. I certainly don't think it's necessary for you to start from the bottom in that sense at all. But it's still the hardest part. You got to get someone who is willing to take a chance on you and willing to employ you without having any professional data science experience. It really helps if you're good at explaining really complex topics in little digestible bites. This is an experience that I got working as a consultant over a few years. Turns out that's incredibly helpful to have that soft skill of being able to translate complexities into smaller digestible bites for an audience of varying technical backgrounds, whether they're professional or a layman. That really helps as well. Hope that answers your question. Hey, Bede.
Hi, Ari. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm so sorry. I was running, so I don't know what are you up to right now? 2 minutes.
I'm chilling.
Sorry,
good.
I was running late. Yeah, I had something to finish.
It's all good. I'm building a natural language model that takes a whole bunch of unstructured text comments from an online forum that comes from our app, and it comes up with a list of topics. And my God, is it tough fiddling and optimizing the hyperparameters of this model. So that's what I'm struggling with today, and I'm trying to put together a Python package to hand back to our beta testers in the company and get feedback. That's today.
Wow.
And tomorrow I'm going to be a report for one of our clients about how the use of our app improves their conversion rates for their checkout offers. Does that make sense? How it improves their sales. Turns out there is a lift. I can explain 11% of the variation, R-squared value of 11%. I'll take it. It's really good.
Wait, so how much time do you spend on your computer a day?
All day. There is, that's the other thing. There is no getting up and going to the lab. You really have to be good at getting up and walking around and moving around. But that's another thing that I really miss about working as a scientist, just moving from one office to the next, spending some time on this bench versus that bench, having different phases, writing phase, research phase. You don't get any of that. It's a desk job, Crystal. It just becomes a desk job. But it's fun. I'm on Zoom all day.
As are we.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Can I ask you, what was your major focus during your meme time? Like some people, I was in paleontology, kind of, geology, not economics so much. So what was your major focus?
So mine varied a little bit. I'd say, so at Harvard, I was looking at the sexually dimorphic variation between a couple different species of wild mice in terms of their neuroanatomical structures. So I was spending a lot of time dissecting brains and preparing histological slides and then quantifying differences within those. I guess you could call it neuroanatomy and behavior. And then for my last semester, I was focusing on the genetics. I was looking at the mitochondrial DNA of a species of seed beetles and how that relates to their metabolic rates. We're basically trying to see if we could associate individuals that were more active with any particular mitochondrial segment of the sort. I guess that's behavioral genetics. So that was my focus.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How would you compare your relationship? Is it better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, sorry about that.
No. You have to turn off one of your microphones and
yes,
then
I think. Okay, I think I
You got it.
one.
I think you got it.
I muted one of yours. I think you're good now.
Nice.
Cool. How would you compare your relationship with your boss as compared to your relationship with your supervisor before?
So I've had a bunch of managers. I've also been really lucky in that at my first job, I didn't have a very good manager. I thought she was excellent until the last couple months where I'm like, you really don't know what you're doing. And I've just been, here's my experience. If a manager is too overwhelmed and busy and has multiple projects and multiple people to manage, you're better off on your own. If there's anything that you can take off of their plate and put it on your plate, you're putting yourself in a better position to be promoted, for example. So I've had managers that have been that way and just too busy to really have any idea of what I'm up to. I've also been, had managers that I've had a couple managers that have been really great in that they've been very attentive, they've been very open, they understand that the profession I'm in is very different than anything they had ever studied or were too familiar with. So they were always open to learning. My current manager seems great as well, although he is also overwhelmed. He's got 3 very young children at home, and he's a VP of product, so he's always in meetings. So it's really hard to find time in his calendar, for example. But they've been great. They've been fantastic. How would I compare it to my relationship with my supervisor? I'd say it's about kind of the same. We have our weekly meetings. If there's something I need, I email them. They're always available to chat. Pretty good. Pretty similar. A manager is a manager, whether they're a PI or a VP of product. Does that make sense?
I have one more question. Sorry. When you decided to stop your PhD and look for jobs in industry, did you find that there were some skills that you could advertise with that you have shown through your academic experience that people that don't come necessarily from this academia side would understand as valuable? What would those skills be? What should be advertised?
That's a really great question, actually, because there are plenty. I just want to bring up my resume really quickly to see if I could I don't have it here. Okay, skills are the rigorous application of the scientific method, extensive experience in advanced analytics and quantitative statistics, expertise in R/Python or object-oriented programming, and just the ability to research things like just desk research. Those are all things that really you really should highlight, because those are huge strengths that I feel are completely lacking in the private sector entirely, especially compared to other analysts coming from the world of management and with their fancy shiny MBAs that cost $100,000 of tuition. They don't have what we have. They don't have this ability to come up with a null hypothesis and then go look for evidence to reject it, for example. They don't do that. This is just completely absent from this world. So I would really emphasize those more than anything else. It's the objective rigor with which you apply the scientific method. Focus on those. And I'm happy, I don't know if it could help, but if you guys want to take a look at my resume, happy to share it. It's what I've been using for the last few years. And of course, you do have to tailor it for the position itself. I should mention there are a bunch of things that which is really helpful to add, especially SQL scripting, structured query language, the ability, so the querying a database to grab data, super simple. If you work in R and Python, you're fine. But even a basic proficiency in SQL can be hugely beneficial because that's often sought for as well. That's something you might not have had from me. I certainly didn't get it.
Do you work mostly on, do you want to go, Mia?
Sorry. So like, I was gonna ask, so how do non-science people perceive competence? Because for science, like it's easy in a way that you can, like show your papers and, show your GitHub, these are my scripts, and for non-science people, like how do they perceive it?
Great question. I think for the most part, they look at where you've worked and then they ask you what impact you've had at where you've worked. So, and that, when you start off, I know you don't have that, which is why I also really think it's hugely important to have a portfolio, have a GitHub page, just to showcase, hey, here's what I can do, here's what I can build. Take a look at this data set that everybody has access to. I visualized it in a really cool way. That sort of thing. And once you get going, yeah, they'll look at where you've worked, which startups you worked for, and what did you do there? Did you generate a new, did you open up a new revenue stream by creating a new business application? Did you find efficiencies? Which business function did you maximize? That's the most important thing. That's the whole point of these machine learning applications. They maximize business functions. And I mean, the function could be as simple as save money or make more money as a starting point. But basically, yeah, that's how you gain sort of recognition and prestige in this world.
Thank you.
I was just curious, like how many of the projects that you work on are local, or is like, are you sort of operating globally now, where people are based everywhere of the world and they contact you to?
So it depends on the company you work for. For example, I was interviewing for this massive consulting company called Accenture. And as part of the requirement for the job was 50% travel. So they'd like send you to like Alberta or somewhere. And I remember bringing that up in the interview and I'm like, this is quite a lot. And they said, don't worry, we'll have you back for the weekend. And I'm like, no. But even pre-pandemic, and again, this is just my own experience, it's been very local. It's been maybe the city over, if anything. I'd have to like drive there or get a ride there for a client meeting. But it's all been local. It's all been within province, within state. Yeah, so far. But like I said, all of these companies that I've worked for, they have ambitions to go global as well, to like have office sites in various countries. So I mean, and given we just had a year of this pandemic and we've all adapted to working online, I see no reason why it shouldn't be the case of working more remotely. It's just that gosh darn time zone difference that will always be. Yeah. Like my current company right now, their policy is you can work from anywhere in the world as long as you're on EST. That's it. So a lot of people, what they do, everybody gets 3 weeks vacation. But the first week they'll move, they'll go somewhere, and for the first week they'll work on EST time, and then they'll like take a couple of weeks off for vacation. That's a very common thing to do. I mean, when the pandemic hit, our main lead designer and one of our co-founders, the chief operating officer, moved to Vancouver. Just got a house in Vancouver across the country, and they've just been working on EST time ever since. So
that's nice to have that flexibility.
Yeah.
And also, I guess, to like get to know what's happening in Toronto, like with all of these different businesses that you work with.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're lucky. I mean, again, these are all desk jobs, so we get to be able to work from home to do them. Yeah, I'm not sure how what it's like to have to, you know, have to go to a lab and extract some DNA samples and stuff, as Charles is, I'm sure, doing right now.
Henry, yeah. Question too, sorry, about this, related to this. I find that in academia, like, I mean, during a meme time and even now during the PhD, it's really, really, really hard to have a work-life balance. It doesn't basically exist for me. It's like continuous. Is that different for you now that you're in industry? Do you have some kind of work-life balance?
So okay, so it depends on where you work. There are laws. Doesn't mean every company abides by those laws. As I came to realize, my first job that I worked for this market research firm, I was really top heavy in that there were like a handful of VPs making over $200,000 a year. And there was like a dozen analysts making under $50,000 a year. And they worked the analysts. It was a sweatshop. And it was expected that you work past 5 o'clock and on weekends if necessary. And it generally was not a good place to be. Eventually they started to change their ways, but I had already gone because it was a lot of wage theft. So it depends on the company and it depends on you. But I will say this, coming out of that market research firm, 5 o'clock comes around, I'm out. I disconnect entirely. As in, I have the option to disconnect entirely and not to have to think about work at all until next Monday, until 9 a.m. the next day. And for the most part, a lot of people, especially those who have families, they can't wait to disconnect at 5 o'clock. So I'd say the culture is dependent on the company, but for the most part, from what I've seen from the various clients that I've worked with and the various, the handful of offices I've worked in, 5 o'clock comes around, you're out. You can totally disconnect. And there's no and you could have deadlines that you do have to work, extra time for or whatever. But for the most part, people are pretty open about giving you loot time. So for example, my third week at this new job, I was asked to work a weekend to get a report done, but in return, I was given the next Thursday off entirely, which I happily took. So that's very common as well.
I have a question for you, Ari. Well, I have two questions. Do you regret leaving academia? One, I don't know if you already answered that question, if somebody already asked the question. And then two, do you get any benefits as a consultant, like health insurance and those types of things?
So I know, okay, so to answer your first question, I miss certain aspects of academia. All you wonderful folks is top of the list. But I mean, do I regret not knowing what's going to happen in a couple of years' time when, whatever position I'm in ends, or whether this paper is going to publish or this journal is going to accept it? Those worries have all gone. Do you know what I mean? Which is a relief, kind of. It does. I mean, there's negativities with this world as well. You have to. I'm lucky where I am right now. Everybody seems very reasonable, but I've worked in offices where some people are harder to work with than others, and you just have to find a way to work with them professionally. So there's certain things that I miss, but overall, I don't regret it. It's worked out. Knock on wood. To answer your second question, I know I said I was a consultant, but it was full-time. It was a full-time position. I know that term usually conveys a sense of you're on your, you're a sole proprietor, you're doing your own thing. But no, it was for a tech consulting firm. It was full-time, full benefits. There was no end to the contracts. You just signed there and you're there forever until you guys part ways, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can give you a sense of what the benefits are like for Toronto. It's not as good as Europe.
Better than the US, though.
Yeah, better than the States, but nowhere near as good as Europe. I have to, there's no. I'm not covered for any franchises at all. Wait, what the hell?
Oh, that sucks. Yeah.
I'm covered for the eye exam once every 2 years, but otherwise nothing.
But that's only France. Switzerland, you don't get anything either.
Oh yeah.
Right, yeah, Switzerland is pretty bad as well. Yeah, they don't get any benefits. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Very interesting. I liked my last, the consultancy job was really good because it was the benefits package was a spending account. You got like $2,500 a year. You could use it all on massages or use it all on lenses or use it all on a brand new set of teeth. You could do whatever the hell you wanted with it. So I really like that flexibility. So sometimes you get like those kinds of benefit packages, which are nice as well.
Are you much better paid than a postdoc in Canada?
How much better what?
Like, are you much better paid than a postdoc in Canada?
How much does a postdoc make? I want to say yeah. No, I think so.
I think it's at least 40,000. Oh, no, max 40,000 Canadian.
Yeah, more than double.
Unless you get the Banting, then it's up to 70.
Right, right. No, we're talking, I mean, so data science, like just the data scientists alone, the median salary in Toronto is, I think, 80 or 85. And if you go senior and every year you add on, like you'll hit 6 figures. This is pre-tax as well.
Like, yeah, like postdoc in Switzerland.
Yeah, no, it is better paid. It is better paid, for sure.
If no one's going, does anyone mind if I ask a question?
Please.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about it. You mentioned a little bit about it before, but I'm curious if there are any industry standards that it would help to familiarize ourselves in. You mentioned SQL. Is there anything kind of like that? Or is there an industry standard for like a certain like data scientist that analyze a certain type of data that you would behoove us to, like a platform or a certain type of method, anything like that?
Great question. SQL definitely on there. Data science, I'd say you need to be familiar with either Google's TensorFlow and Keras platform for working with deep learning models, or Facebook's PyTorch system. One or the other, either or works. And it's expected that you know how to work with deep learning and how neural networks function and how to build and stack up your own neural network and get it to train and optimize it and all that. So definitely you need to be familiar with either Google's TensorFlow and Keras framework or Facebook's PyTorch. They're both great. They both, I learned Keras, but I wish I started off with PyTorch. Having said that, there are so many wrapper packages out there that you don't really need to get into the minutia of the neural network. You could just use a package that's wrapped around everything and work through that. Sometimes you do need to get down into the details, which is what I'm having to do with the topic model. But again, there's just so much resources out there to help you along that I'd say it's don't worry about it too much. If you can run it, if you can understand what a random forest model is and how it works, you're fine. You're good, I think. Another platform that may or may not be relevant, depending on your client's overall system, is big data technology. So GDFS, Google's file processing system, or Hadoop. Those are like the more like yesterday's technologies that are used a lot, but today it's all about Spark. Look that up. So if you're not familiar with it, it's basically a different distributed file processing system that allows you to query massive amounts of data in a practical time frame by just taking a serial querying task and parallelizing it into something more sequential. And again, it's all based on Java, but you don't need to be familiar with Java scripting, because again, there are wrappers that you could use. There's a package called PySpark that you could use to interface with the Spark platform. Not everybody uses this. Most companies actually don't. A few companies were misusing it, which is one big issue I had with this one client at this one time in my last job. But that may or may not be relevant as well. So if you want to put it on your resume, I don't think it's necessary for you to showcase your abilities to work with big data infrastructure, but it would be helpful to say that you're familiar with it at least. So I'd say for deep learning, TensorFlow or PyTorch, maybe big data, definitely SQL. I'd say top of all those is SQL though, and TensorFlow and deep learning. So yeah, if anything else comes to my mind, I'll let you know. But those are the top ones.
Thanks, that was really helpful.
Hi, I have a question.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Ginny from the first cohort.
Hi, Ginny.
Hi. So I wonder, like, how do you decide to follow a data scientist career path when you're still doing your PhD? And also the machine learning aspect, did you already have exposure to it during like MIM or PhD, or you start to learn it later because it's useful for data science?
I didn't have any exposure to any of that. And I kind of started teaching myself that stuff while still a student. A lot of Sundays, went to my favorite coffee shop in Montreal, sat down. It was called Kitsune, Charles. I think it's gone now. I think it's something else. I think it was on St. Arthur. I don't know. Just go get an espresso, get a bagel, and just sit. And what I found most helpful, far more helpful than like tutorials on how to like build stuff, was to take the data sets that I already had and try to like use a neural network to come up with a predictive model. Maybe not so much to like explain what was going on in the data, to identify like which predictors are the most influential, anything like that, but to come up with a model that has the highest predictive quality and the highest predictive accuracy, for example. So all of that was self-taught for me personally. And I taught myself a great deal more after I left academia as well. So yeah, so there are like boot camps or other condensed like week-long classes that you can take. Yeah. I would say watch out for those, because oftentimes I've seen the material they go through and the content that they cover. It's not enough time to actually fully absorb everything that you're being taught. And a lot of the time it's just like, here's a bunch of code, run it in sequence. All right, congratulations, here's your certification. Give us our money. Learning by doing is best. So what I found, again, what I found most helpful was taking data I was familiar with and applying a new predictive model on top of it. And then struggling with all the errors and pulling my hair out with all the red code that was coming back to me and things that weren't executing. But eventually, like, that's frustration is part of it. And that's what taught me personally. Your mileage may vary, but that's what I would recommend.
Thank you. And like, how do you decide to become a data scientist? Like, when did you like consider other career options back then?
Desperation. No, data science seemed the most attractive because it was important for me to maintain my profession as a researcher and a scientist, and it was in the name. So, you know, and I had enough, you know, thanks to Groningen, you know, where I got all of us were introduced to R, well, half of us were introduced to R. Like, that's where I got the foundation for programming, and that was all I needed.
Okay.
To sort of get going with it. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, yeah, what, like, if there are also other career options of, or if.
So none of them are as well paying and still incorporate science. I mean, there's statisticians out there, but people would rather nowadays hire data scientists than a statistician, despite the fact that most of what they do overlaps entirely. And if you want, I mean, there are plenty of positions in tech that are even better paying than data science that don't have science. Data engineers, for example, just because of the market, there's not enough of them right now for all the amount of demand there is for them, or like full stack engineers. But those really require many years of like that work, or like you have to go to school for that to become, especially a full stack engineer, for example. Like, these are the people building apps and websites and backends, or database administrators building full database infrastructures. Those are all good tech jobs, but again, I don't know of any that pay, you know, that much and still incorporate key elements of science and the scientific method. So nothing that comes to my mind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks. I'm just wondering, yeah, if like how does data science compare to like other career options outside of academia? Yeah.
Right. So, and there's always your conventional analyst position too, right? But again, that's incredibly broad. It could mean several things. You could be working on Excel and PowerPoint all day as an analyst, or you could be building dashboards and presenting and building even mathematical models sometimes as an analyst as well. So yeah, that's more of a kind of crapshoot depending on where you end up and what you apply for. Yeah.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Yep.
Hi. So how long did it take you to feel comfortable? Like, you know, and at least in science, when you arrive to a new job or to a new research project, it takes a long time to get comfortable. And if it's a new subject, etc. Like, do you feel like that in each new job you have? Or is it like, did you arrive to this new job? It's like, okay, I can handle this from A to Z.
Yeah, great question. Imposter syndrome. I remember when I was first putting together my resume and I put it up on the title, you know, my name, professional data scientist next to it. And I remember giving it to one of my close friends and asking him to like give me, you know, criticize it and critique it and give me feedback. And the first thing he said is like, bro, you're not a professional. Like, you can't claim that you're a professional data scientist. And that really hit me. I remember. Having said that, you got to fake it till you make it. And I mean, I got really lucky with that consulting job. If looking back at who I was back then and what I knew and what I know now, I don't think I would have hired me. But at the same time, you learn year over year with every new experience. And because of the nature of that job, you know, it was expected that I put on a suit and go talk confidently and with competence about how our clients should be spending their money and how they should be, you know, building their infrastructure and the sort. So that really helped out. Just to be forced to be that authoritative voice in the room, and also be like sent out to the client side alone with nobody else from the company with me. It takes time for sure. I'd say it took me like a year and a half, but I was always confident that I was going to get there. Do you know what I mean? Like it was no question about, this is probably one of the most valuable things that we've all attained is the ability to learn how to learn, right? And that's the most valuable thing I think we have. And as long as you can apply that within any field, especially data science that's so open to, so much is required for you to learn new things. You're going to be fine. So one company might require you to work with image data or video data, and you eventually, after a few months, become an expert at that. Other companies may require you to do everything. Other companies might require you to only work with churn data, for example. So it just takes time. But again, just getting your foot in the door. If you can do that, you guys should all be confident in your abilities.
I think MIM prepares you very well to move from
one
project to another.
Very well. And again, we're lacking like critical minds, like the ones that MIM breeds, for example, is severely lacking in the private sector. Really, really is. So I think we're all well positioned. It's just a question of getting our foot in the door.
And just sorry, I just wanted to add something just to add on to that. I think the fact that MIM is so international and that we get a chance to travel and to be part of very multi-cultural, very international teams is a great asset. It's like, it's not something that locals have. Like here, like I live in France, for example, and the French don't have this type of experience. So when you go into a place and you tell them, okay, like I've lived in all of these countries and I worked in this international teams, they're really amazed and they want people like us actually because it's like such valuable experience that MIM gives us in that sense.
Certainly, definitely so in Europe for sure.
Yeah,
up here in North America, not so much. I'd say they don't recognize that aspect of it. They more want to see what your experiences have been, what impact you've had. But for sure, again, that's the other part of me. That's the other thing that doesn't really apply so much in North America where I am. But yes, better to your point. Huge advantage. that we all have.
Cool. Are there any other questions?
Yeah,
we have like 3 minutes left. I know Ari has to run.
I have a quick question. Is it do you live in Toronto because that was where you found the job, or that's where you wanted to be, in the sense that how easy it is to get a data scientist job in other cities in Canada?
I'm a Canadian citizen, and Toronto's where I did my undergrad, and where I'm living now is an 8-minute walk away from where I got my first job. So that's why I'm here. Having said that, there are many, many cities within North America that have a very strong tech base. Boston, New York, Seattle, all of California, pretty much, Bay Area especially. And then in Canada, there's like little pockets in Vancouver. There's really great stuff happening in Alberta and Edmonton specifically. And then there's a whole tech valley, I guess you'd call it, corridor more rather, across the east coast of Canada, starting with like probably Quebec City, I'd say Montreal, going all the way down to Guelph. I don't know if you're familiar with these cities, but they're
I'm in Toronto as well. So
yeah. So yeah, you gotta like, you'd probably be best if you go where the money is, where the venture capital is, where the tech startups are. Like, you'd have better chances of finding good employment. And again, this is just North America. I don't know what the deal is in Europe so much.
Laura, do you have one last question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know something. So I feel like science academia is very flexible with the way we work. For example, I'm not a morning person. So I arrive late. My supervisor knows that I won't be responsive at 9 in the morning. And I feel like if we're very free, because in a sense, the product of our work only will affect us kind of personally, you know, because if you don't publish, well, sucks for you, right? Because then you won't get the position later. And I fear that in other types of jobs, that wouldn't be the case, that it would be much horrible.
So, Laura, you're right, but it's not something to fear. You are expected to be on, it depends on your team and where you work. Like my first job, you could walk in at 10:30. Everyone's fine because they knew that you were working late until 7, 8 p.m. in the office, for example. So it really depends on where you work. But for the most part, you're totally right. It is far more collaborative. Every project I'm on, I'm not on alone. I have, someone to report to, other people that I delegate tasks to. So it is far more collaborative in that sense. So it is expected for you to be there between 9, but as soon as 5 o'clock comes around, so don't worry about that. Not everybody's a morning person either. We have like there's so many company policies. One that we have in this company is Tuesday mornings and Thursday afternoons are like quiet time. So no meetings then. I know other companies ensure that there are this pre-pandemic, no in-person meetings on Fridays. So everybody could work from home on Fridays in that sense. So companies do recognize that, that there are policies in place to counter the crazy pace of work that some positions require. Nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. Yeah, you do lose that freedom a little bit, but at the same time, you gain a whole bunch of other things too. And it's fun. It's fun to get online at 9 a.m. and have your daily or bi-weekly sync with the whole team, see what everybody's up to, touch base with everyone, and then what's on your plate for the day. Kind of. It's much more fast-paced for sure, and you don't have these big grand projects, big grand dissertation chapters that you're working towards. It's more like projects start. Take about 2 to 6 to 8 weeks and you're done. Deliverables are done, on to the next one. It's more fast-paced.
All righty. Well, if anyone has any more questions for Ari.
Can I have one last question?
Sure. I have time, Charles. It's okay. I don't have a meeting booked.
Okay, cool. If you're good, then we're good.
Just a short one. Do you know anybody who joined the field of data science, like after PhD in biology or any other fundamental science?
I don't know any biologists. I've come across a couple engineers, and they've always been the most fun to work with.
Okay.
Because they get it. I haven't come across any biologists, to be honest. We're rare and we're lacking. Having said that, guys, I think my company's hiring senior analysts, I think, by the way. I was just informed yesterday. They came and told me, hey, we love the work you're doing with all the stats that you're running, but we want you focused on something else. So we're going to hire someone to do that for you. But I haven't even looked at the job posting, but I'm supposed to help with the hiring and help interview and stuff. And if anybody's interested in coming to Toronto, Nudge is hiring. And I will highly promote you, whoever it is, if they're from me. You got my backing, 100%.
Okay, since you have time, do you mind if I ask another question?
No, please, go ahead.
So assuming that you do get your foot in the door, my question is about advancement. So what kinds of skills and what kinds of practices will allow you to actually rise through the ranks and get promotions?
Great question. Switching companies helps. And I briefly mentioned
some multi-company experience, like different workplace experience, basically.
No, as in you work at a certain position for a few years at some company, and then if they don't promote you to senior data scientist or senior analyst, then you go to another company and get promoted there. Do you know, and get that promotion that way? So definitely switching companies generally, conventionally tends to give you a bump both in terms of your status and compensation. More locally, what I found to be really sort of make the case for your promotion is to, one, negotiate really hard, because if you don't, nobody else is, you can't rely on HR, you can't rely on your boss to remember that it's your 1-year anniversary, your 6-month check-in. You kind of have to have those unpleasant and awkward conversations about, hey, where's my compensation hasn't changed in X amount of time. This isn't, well, I just want to know where we're at with that. I just want to know whether I should be, what my long-term tenure plan looks like for where I am right now, and so on and so forth. And then figure out what's on, if you have the bandwidth, if you have the hours, figure out what's on your superior's plate and take it off their plate for them before they even ask. Sort of under promise and over deliver wherever you can. And if you can demonstrate that you could do the job of somebody who's above you, then you're basically making the case that you should be in that position and you should be promoted and you should move up that corporate ladder as well. But I think more than anything else, it's having those uncomfortable conversations, especially the first one, especially when you're first interviewing, when you get to that phase where you finally, they agree that they want you and you're a great candidate, and then you get to negotiating the compensation. Like, that's where you really have to aim high, and whatever you establish there kind of sets the tone thereafter. So I found that I've made mistakes when I've had those conversations, and like they could have gone other ways, and there was a bit of information asymmetry. I wasn't too familiar with what the market was paying for those roles and those responsibilities. So it really helps to have those awkward negotiations and sort of make sure that you're heard. And also, as I mentioned, do your senior's job for them.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, by the way. This has been really, really interesting and useful. I was just wondering if there are any skills you've got in industry that you sort of wished you'd had when you were a grad student or a PhD student.
Ooh, good question. I think it's the other way around. I mean, it's mostly been all the great skills. I always think about all the great skills that I got from academia that I'm transferring entirely and applying here. I'm thinking of what skills. The thing is, like, no, maybe submitting jobs to a compute cluster. I'm better at it now, or rather I'm better at knowing which clusters we should be paying for, because that was part of my job to know and to sell. writing Python code, like writing your own custom packages in Python, understanding the difference between a method and a function and a class, for example, basic object-oriented programming, and anything that you could sort of rely less on Excel for, where you're prone to human error, copying and pasting, and you could do programmatically. That may have been advantageous to have, but no, I think that's about it. Just like I'm trying to think of other tech things that could have been beneficial. Your ability to pipette things, like those are key, and they don't really translate. It's not required on the other side so much. So yeah, imbalance. More skills come from academia to the private sector than vice versa, in my opinion.
Cool, thank you.
I just wanted to add something that I've been becoming aware, and maybe you all know, but I wasn't until a few years ago, that at least in Europe, it seems that there's a growing market for bioinformaticians. And bioinformaticians, from what I've seen, and I recently applied from one position for them, I haven't heard, but it seems to me that it's very intermediate. Like we already get to apply biology while being a step closer to data science, as Ari is describing it. So I feel like, for example, Ginny was asking about other options for careers. It seems to me like that's another path that we can actually easily transition to. And talking to some people already working there, both of them, the two I talked to were, just like us, evolutionary biologists that moved into there. And talking with with them, it seemed to me that once having that experience as bioinformaticians, they later move into industry as well. So that would be maybe another path, a bit more buffered, less scary even, if we would want to do that eventually. Another option.
Totally agree. I remember them telling us back in our first semester on phone again, hey, biostatisticians are in demand. It always seems so foreign to me, but I'm sure everyone here is, you guys are better at it than I am. I never had to do it too much in my master's. For sure. But yes, that is definitely a very valid alternative. I'm surprised Sergio has been very quiet, sitting there with us.
It's even there.
Are you?
I'm always quiet. Just listening and learning, and I'm actually about to leave, to be honest. No, I need to prepare something for tomorrow, but it was nice to see you anyway.
Likewise, man. Always good to see you. Okay, guys, if you have, if you guys think of any other questions later on, like you have me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. Check out Nudge Rewards and go to their job postings, see if you want to move to Toronto. I actually don't know what the compensation is. I should ask my manager right now, how much does that pay? Because I don't think they post that.
Free to stay in Toronto.
Yeah.
You need to be in Toronto?
Yeah, well, you need to be on EST, and it really helps if you're in Toronto. They actually want you in the office when things open back up. You don't have to be there 5 days a week, but like 2 to 3 days a week, kind of. So it's a fun office.
I've pasted Ari's email as well in the chat, in case anyone wants that. And yeah, unless anyone has any other questions, we can finish it up here. Thank you so much, Ari. This was, again, very enlightening. I've attended both and I've learned new things. Maybe we can have a third one. And then also, if nobody has signed up for a seminar for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I think. So if someone does want to give a seminar, please let me know. If not, unless I send out another email, we'll reconvene the next time, which is like, I think, a month from now. And I think Mohammed signed up to give a presentation, but maybe someone will sign up. I'll let you know via email and Facebook. Alrighty. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Very nice seeing you.
Likewise. So good.